In this week's video, let's learn how to fight Akuma as Terry. So the last video I made, I was actually going over Kentio's matchup tier list for Terry, and let me tell you, tons of people were surprised that he had Akuma listed as 5-5 in the matchup, so dead even. And I can see why people thought that, because Akuma's a real menace, let's be honest. And that includes one of my followers, Sam, that left this comment that just said he has such a hard time struggling against Akuma, and I want to let him know that I'll reach out to one of my good buddies that plays Akuma, and he'd help me give a breakdown of why this matchup is not as bad as people think. This is how that phone call went. Hey brother, what's up? Remember you mentioned you'd help me if I ever needed a video, so I just need some tips on how to beat Akuma with Terry. Alright, awesome. It's been a minute since we talked, man. How's your sex life? Hello? What the hell, he hung up. And before I get started, big shout out to my boy Kill Them All. He's such a busy guy in real life, so for him to take out the time to help us learn the matchup really meant a lot to me. If you see him in the Battle Hub, go challenge him, learn the Akuma matchup. I'm not going to lie to you, he's probably going to whoop you, but you know what? You're still going to learn the matchup, so it might be worth it. Thanks again, brother. So the first tip he gives is actually more about just understanding Akuma. He says you just have to accept that Akuma is a good character, and you know what? We know this. If you've been fighting against Akuma since the 1900s like many of us, you know this guy's a beast in every single game he's in. You just have to accept it. But one thing he wants you to know is you have to understand where Akuma excels the most, and that's in the corner. So the one thing my friend said is just undisputed is once Akuma has you in the corner, he's essentially the best character in the game. That's where he gets unlocked. He becomes Super Saiyan 4, God tier, whatever you want to call him, that's where he's just the best. And even the best players in the world are going to struggle against a strong Akuma in the corner. This game's options, you know, what he has available, he's just going to pick you apart. He says that's why you have to avoid the corner at all costs and fight in neutral as best to your ability. Because even though he's still good in neutral, he has some flaws that he wants you to know. So the first thing you need to understand about Akuma's corner carry is that it's very expensive to his drive bar. Like, look at this combo over here. That's 3 bars. It only really does 3,000 damage, which is not that much. But you don't get like a Ken godly level corner carry. So you have to know that for Akuma to actually push you to the corner, it's going to be expensive resource wise. Here's another sequence here, you know, just more Akuma wasting tons of drive bar to get you into the corner. He might have to drive rush after this, waste more bar. But the point he wanted to hammer home is when you're fighting him as close to neutral as possible or as far from the corner as possible, that's where you might actually have the drive bar lead and you're going to actually be able to dictate different parts of the matchups. But you gotta avoid the corners at all costs. So one area we gotta focus on is Akuma's, you know, demon flip shenanigans. So we've all been in this situation. We got Akuma cornered, hits us with this combo. He just does a demon flip that's empty, and he's on the other side. Now you're gonna think that, man, all that work to get him in the corner and he just has that free escape. Well, one thing my buddy was teaching me is that you dictate which side Akuma lands on with the demon flip, and in general, you got a lot more options than you think. So the first thing to know is if you just stand still and get up in place, Akuma will always land behind you when he does that trick. But if you do a quick rise and you roll backwards, Akuma will always land in front of you. So you have to know that you're the one that dictates exactly which side Akuma lands on, but that is where the thinking process comes in. Because you're not always going to want Akuma to land, you know, in front of you. And I'm going to show you some examples. So in neutral, a lot of Akumas are going to be sneaky because they know people have a bad habit of always quick rising. And if you quick rise this in neutral, look what happens. You sent yourself in the corner and Akuma's in front of you. And now you're in big trouble. So you have to read the situation and say, hey, if Akuma hits me with this demon flip shenanigan in neutral, don't do a quick rise now, because guess what? He goes behind me and he's in the corner. And here's an example of exactly what I mean. You see the Akuma play here, Mena, when he goes for this demon flip shenanigan, his opponent knows not to do the quick rise, and now Mena's in the corner. And we all know the corner is the worst place in this game, and you can see he's paying for it now with some big damage combos. This is the importance of knowing when to quick rise and when not to against demon flip. Another thing that Akuma does from this demon flip shenanigans that catches a lot of people is he goes into the chop. But it's important to recognize once he goes into that chop, if your character has a DP available, a light DP will beat it clean, and you can even combo into a level 3 so easily from it. So you have to go into training and find the timings on those chops if your character is lucky enough to have a DP. Also, if you back roll the chop, guess what? Terry still gets a devastating combo off of it because he's got a stand medium punch. So remember, even if you back roll the chop, there's still something you can get off, and this is a punish counter combo. Great corner carry and tons of damage. So a very good tip he gave was to backdash on wake up, because one, it'll beat throw attempts, but it'll also give you a read on what level your Akuma is. because he says a lot of junior Akumas in this situation, if you backdash and you get hit by a medium punch, for example, they'll try to combo another medium punch into it because they're autopiloted into doing it. But he says if Akuma you're facing does a medium punch into stand light kick like that, it means, okay, you're fighting an Akuma that actually knows what they're doing and they know their spacing, because tons of Akumas are going to go to medium, and look, it doesn't work. So this will let you know exactly the level of Akuma you're facing. Does he know what he's doing or doesn't he? So the next move we got to talk about is Akuma stand medium punch. This is a big noob killer. So as you can see, it's +1 on block for Akuma, but the one thing to remember here is that it doesn't leave him in throw range. So if you block this, he can't throw you after. He's got to walk up forward and then throw you. So then what a lot of Akumas will do is they'll try to frame trap you by doing a stand medium punch into a crowd light punch, and that will beat any option you have because one, he is +1, and this will beat basically everything you have. So Akumas will try to test you with this. So what you have to do in this situation is go into training mode and learn how to delay parry if the Akuma loves throwing jabs after this. So you have to delay the parry, because if you don't delay it, you're going to keep getting that animation. If you take 1 frame longer just to delay it, then you'll start getting the perfect parries off. But you're going to have to start dictating what type of Akuma you're facing before you do this option, because if Akuma goes up to grab you, then you're going to be eating a punish counter throw, and you don't want that. But if you know that the Akuma loves to throw jabs after, then that's when you can throw in that delayed parry. Alright, so this is very important. A lot of Akumas are going to go into this string. It all combos, but they'll do it on block as well. It's stand medium punch, crouch light punch, stand light kick. So as you can see, it combos there. But a lot of the times they're going to be doing it as a block string like that. And this gets a ton of players, because if you do things like crouch medium punches or stand medium punches, you will get blown up for this with counter hits like you see over here. But if you have a 4-frame jab or a long reaching stand jab, you're going to be able to annoy Akuma, because you're going to be able to break this string, because this is all bogus baloney. So if you're playing against an Akuma that loves this block string, and believe me, a lot of them do, just remember, as long as you block that crouch light punch, if you mash your own jab, Akuma will never be able to get that stand light kick off, because it's your turn again. And thankfully, Terry's got some combo punishes to this as well. Alright, the dreaded air fireball. So many people hate it, and I can see why, but Terry can actually deal with it okay. First of all, Akuma's a gigantic hurtbox under his ass, so any one of Terry's DPs can get him from so far away. Depending on, the distance, you might have to do the fierce punch, but even the light punch DP, as you can see, I can get him from so far away because that hurtbox is so huge and you have air invincibility. So go into training and practice Akuma doing tiger knee fireballs in the air. So if you don't know what that is, that means getting the air fireball on the first active frame in the air, and then just practice your DPs. But guess what? Terry's got more options to deal with this. Now, if you find that your opponent's just getting careless with the air fireballs like this, there are some distances where your stand fierce kick are going to beat it just like that. And the best part is, this is just, the risk versus reward is so in Terry's favor. If you get hit, it's only 720 damage against you on a counter hit, but if you actually snipe them out of the air, you can go into crazy things like level 1 full screen does over 3,000 damage. There are further follow-ups that you can go into, like that will go into level 1. You can also do the DP into level 3 after that. So if the Akuma is not spacing their air fireballs properly or doing the necessary things they got to do to keep it safe, they're going to be eating tons of damage. So you got to look out for this. And sometimes it's not a bad idea to actually jump towards your opponent when they do an air fireball, because in this situation, Akuma is actually very negative when you land. So if you time it correctly, you'll get a punish counter combo on the ground, which is always, very good against Akuma. But if you snipe him out of the air, you can still do things like burning knuckle follow-ups. And if you do it deep enough, like you can actually get a, super after it. So the important thing to remember here is that there's so many options to deal with air fireballs, and it's a huge risk for Akuma if he's sleeping at the wheel. And the exact same thing applies to Akuma's doing demon flips. If you catch them in the air, you see that they're not spinning out of control like a punish counter combo, like they're just falling back to the ground. That doesn't mean that you can't do any follow-ups. You have enough time to get some crazy combos off, but the main takeaway you have to know is if you get Akuma in the air in a trade, do not fall asleep at the wheel because there's tons of damage to be gained. Alright, so a lot of Akumas, and this is a big noob killer, but you're going to have to go into training and find out the exact timings for all of his flame attacks like this. But the light punch one we'll start off with first because it's the easiest to recognize. It's so quick. If it seems like Akuma punches extremely quick, it's 9 times out of 10 going to be the light punch version. But as you can see, it's -8 on block, which means Terry's got tons of punishes. He can do a stand jab. He can do a stand medium punch. He can even do a crouch medium kick, so you can punish it from far away with your target combo. The point is, if the Akuma is testing you with this and it comes out quick, just know that he's -8 and Terry can get tons of damage off of that. Alright, so the situation you're going to see this mostly in are block strings. So this is a true block string with a light punch flame. There's nothing I can do to interrupt it. But if they do a point blank, we know now that how negative this move is. You can get them with a big damage combo and go on your way. So a lot of Akumas are going to try to perfectly space this, so your moves like stand medium punch are not going to reach, or stand jab is not going to reach. But thankfully, Terry has one of the longer crouch medium kicks in the game, so you can still go into the target combo or do the drive rush cancel into the combo of your choice. But you just have to make sure your timing is on point to get that punish counter. But don't let Akumas do this to you for free. Alright, so the next flame you're going to see is this medium punch flame. This sends them a lot further, and it's still pretty quick, but it's not as fast as the light punch version. So if you block this one, as you can see, you're +4, so Akuma's -4. And thankfully, Terry has stand jab, which is a very far-reaching 4-frame normal, and that means you can still punish this with a jab. But you're going to say, I don't get a lot of conversions out of a jab, but here's the thing you got to remember. Because it's a punish counter jab, it means you're going to be a +8 in this situation. And that means you're going to be able to combo into the crouch medium kick. So even meterless, you're going to be able to get this target combo off. And this is very good because not a lot of characters are going to have an option like this, which is meterless and still send them very far. But if you do want to add more damage, you can always drive rush after and then, add to the combo whichever way that you like. But the medium punch version can be stopped by a jab on punish, and if you're not sure if it's the light version or the medium version, at least you know you're going to get a punish counter jab on either version, so you can go into that target combo to cover both options. So to me, the medium punch version is actually the scariest one to deal with, because in a block string, now it is not a true block string, but if I mash jab, I'm going to get hit by a counter hit combo on a trade. Or if I try to mash a bigger button, I'm just going to get beat cleanly. So you have to know the differences between which one he's doing, but try to be patient and don't try to mash out of the quick ones. The ones you can mash out of are the heavy ones. So if Akuma does the heavy palm, this is the easiest one to tell because it is much longer and much slower than the other ones. He's actually safe on block, so there's nothing you can do to hit him after if they're blocking. But if they're doing it in a block string, for example, so if you see an Akuma try to get you with a block string like this one you can actually mash out of. So you have to know the differences of speeds and the cues of what they're doing. And it might be a placebo in my head, but I do think that Akuma has an audio cue when he does these grunts. So you want to look out for that. But to me, it's very easy to distinguish between the light punch one and the hard punch one. And it's just the medium one that you have to be more careful with. But just know that you can still punish that with a stand jab on block. Alright, so when you have Akuma in the corner, the #1 goal there is to keep him. And the single most consistent move that keeps him in the corner if he tries to jump out is a jump back or a neutral light punch. So when you jump back and you do this chop, it's 4 frames and it just snipes Akuma out of the air. And I know you're going to say, it's not as sexy as a DP, you don't get that much damage, but every pro Terry does this because it's the single most consistent way to keep Akuma in the corner. And believe me, of course you can do things like crosscut DPs, which I'm pretty comfortable doing, like DPing the opponent when they land behind you. But the main takeaway is that, yes, you might get the extra damage, but guess what? Akuma's out of the corner, and it's not as consistent. If I miss, I'm eating big damage. So yes, the jump back jab doesn't do a ton of damage, but at least you know you keep Akuma in the corner. So one thing Akumas are going to do a ton is when they're in the corner and you're at this distance, they're just going to chuck fireballs because Akuma's got the best fireball in the game. It's extremely fast, it's very annoying to deal with, especially with Terry, but there are things you can do to counter this. The first is knowing the right distance to crack shoot. So I would never crack shoot from this distance because you would have to get the hard read, but if your opponent is chucking fireballs, you're going to get hit on startup like that. So you need to know if you're standing at 3/4 screen, so over here, I like to look at this player 1 or player 2 icon at the top and say that, hey, if Terry's head is near there, I know I can safely get a crack shoot from further away, and then make that prediction a lot easier to deal with, because you know what? Crack shoot goes pretty far, and guess what? I don't have to deal with getting hit out of the startup animations like I did if I had to do it closer. My reactions have to be much better to do it up close. So one great thing to remember with crack shoot is your options are not going to end there. Once you hit them with the fierce kick version of crack shoot, as you can see, they're plus 43, which means your offense is not going to stop there after you guess right on a fireball. So after 2 dash forwards, you're going to see that you're plus 5. That means Terry gets a great strike throw mix up. So if you set Akuma to throw, for example, if I dash forward twice and hit crouch medium punch, it's a perfect frame trap for more damage. So Akuma's got to be wary for that. The other thing you can do is if you dash forward once, jab, and walk backwards, you get a shimmy opportunity. So you get to mix and match the option that you want to do, but it just adds to the mental stack that Akuma made a mistake that, hey, I threw a fireball out, they hit me with a crack shoot, but the offense doesn't end there for Terry. So in this distance, this is also where your OD Powerwave plays a big role, because now that Akuma's in the corner, he can't just keep throwing fireballs to keep you at bay, because we talked about crack shoots, and now if you get the read on them and then in a fireball trade, you get the OD Powerwave, you get a ton of damage out of this. And it's something that the Akuma has to be very wary for. And even if they don't throw a fireball, the OD Powerwave in the corner is so strong. Even simply just walking behind it is a powerful tool because you can still get combos off. So when Akuma's in this distance, this is where Terry can actually mitigate the fireball war a bit because he's got options to compete in this range. And here's an example of how that OD Powerwave helps Terry a lot in this matchup. If you get the right read, Akuma's really going to have to respect it. If not, he's eating 50% damage, no problem. And then the final thing is all about fireballs. So one tell that they say that Akumas have when they have low drive bar, so if I set Akuma to have 1 drive bar, they're going to be chucking up fireballs like crazy because look, if I'm to block the fireball, I lose drive bar and Akuma gains it back as well. So we know blocking the fireball is not the best thing to do because you can't advance forward either. So a lot of Terrys will try to compete with the fireball game with Akuma with the medium punch. They'll try to get the trades, but I'm telling you, this is not the right way to go in a lot of situations because he's still gaining the meter and you're not really advancing or gaining screen control. So in these situations, you gotta do the parries to move forward. Look how much easier it is for me to move forward if I parry. This way Akuma knows that, hey, I'm only going to be able to build up a certain amount of meter. Like, he still gets meter back if you parry a fireball, but at least he knows now that you're closing the gap and he's gonna have to think sooner rather than later. If you give them all the time in the world to figure out what to do and get their meter back, they're going to take this screen position 10 times out of 10. So you have to make them feel uncomfortable and go close in that gap. That's the video. I hope you liked it. I know Akuma's a tough nut to crack, but honestly, Terry's got a lot more options compared to other characters to keep him honest. If you like this stuff, like, comment, subscribe, and let's talk about it below. Peace out, everybody.